Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and welcome to 1% Better, where we take a look at hidden stories in sports. I'm Xylon and I'm joined, as always, by Dr. David Lipman. I got a question for you, a medical question this week, and I asked ChatGPT to give it to
Of course
me.
you did.
What? Of course, but I did it while I was driving because I've had a very busy day. So the prep that you so wonderfully put together for this episode again, I put it through ChatGPT to read it to me while I was driving. And then I said, "Oh, I need a doctor's question." Do you know what the voice says? The speaker at ChatGPT, it's like it knows you. It says, I'm going to try and read it in ChatGPT voice. It says, "All right, Dave, here's your quiz for today. What is the only organ in the human body that can generate lost tissue? And what percentage of organ can be removed while still allowing it to grow back fully?"
It's the liver, and I think it's 70%, but I might be wrong. I don't know that
Correct.
so well.
You're spot
Yeah,
on. You're 100% correct. That's incredible, eh?
yeah. I mean, yes, it is. It's cool that you can get a liver from somebody else and they still have functioning. Right, like you can donate a kidney because you only need one, but like donating liver and regenerates. It's amazing. It also speaks to like how badly we abuse that thing and how important it is for us.
It's almost like someone or something or evolution knew we were going to abuse it and knew this thing could reduce to 30% of itself and then still grow back. That is incredible.
Correct.
Okay, we
Correct,
are
mate.
supported by Precision Fuel and Hydration. Do you know why I love this company? Something that has impressed me about them this year is their sports marketing ability to tap into the right talent. They've had another couple of winners, for big winners from this weekend. Lizzie Rayner won Ironman 72.3 Cascais, and Hayden Walks won the Kodiak 100 miler. It seems like every single weekend a precision athlete is winning something big.
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's twofold, right? They can attract talent because of product. It's the first thing. And the second thing is they keep talent because they actually help them win. So that they bet early on somebody, they help them win, and then the people stay because of that. So it's multifold. I'm quite enamored with how they do this. There's lots of lessons I'm taking from precision, and that's one of them. I was interested by this because Hayden Hawks fueled at 100 grams an hour, but he pretty much used exclusively the flow gel. So for those who don't know the story of the flow gel, basically people, read cyclists, have this weird habit of wanting to put gels in a drink bottle, which makes no sense to me, but whatever. So they would squeeze a bunch of gels into a drink bottle and then add some water. And basically, so Precision just made the flow gel to help them in that context. And Hayden Hawks is using this, which is, I mean, it's a little bit foreign to me. I haven't ever tried it. I have some flow gel, but because it's a big bag, I didn't want to use all of it anyway. I need to try it. Is the take home message here? I've heard good things. People are using this more and more. I heard Solveig Lovseth use this as well. So like, yeah, I need to try this.
That's impressive. Yeah, 100 grams an hour. Very, very impressive. But yeah, if you'd like to use and try Precision Fuel and Hydration, good news for you. We've got a discount code for you on your first purchase. That code is the number 1PB2025. We also have a direct link in the show notes below for you to engage with that discount code.
Yeah,
What is
that is
going
off
on
your.
with you?
That is 15% off your first order. Not every order. It is first order only. And yeah, we do appreciate you supporting us in that
I mean,
context.
I did say that up front, but who's the one who accuses the other one of never listening again? Silence.
Yeah.
Is your internet working? Are you okay? What's happening? Are you still doing? Last week we spoke about you doing some heat training. Is that carrying on?
Yep, mate, 60% now on my core. So we'll talk about that a bit later. But yeah, I've been doing a bit more of it. I'm really using it as a way to load up the central system and let the muscles, joints, bones, etc., have less load, right? So like leave the peripheral system alone a little bit, but like add extra load to the central system. I mean, it helps that London weather's been a bit variable, and when it's not so good, it's easy to stay inside. And I have a little sweatbox gym thing here, so that's good. But got out this morning in the cold, actually, single digits Celsius, which is like 40s Fahrenheit. Got a nice one in this morning though, so yeah, it's been good, mate. Back enjoying the gym probably a little bit more, which is nice, and seeing some benefits there when you cut some running load. All of a sudden, you have all this extra energy that you can devote to gym, which has been nice. But it's been good, mate. What about you? What are you doing?
Same, actually. Back in the gym yesterday after traveling for the last 10 days or so.
It
Got
doesn't
back.
show.
Got back to working with the bio, which is really good, which I really love. I feel so much better afterwards, despite the nerve compression issues I have. And then he popped me after the session. He popped me into Normatec boots for 15 minutes. I never used it before. First time using it. It was really cool.
Yeah, it's nice. I really like it. I still can't work out if the real benefit is that I have to sit still and then generally just fall asleep, or if the benefit is that there's some compression there. I do think there is a benefit to it, but yeah, it's quite cool. Your legs feel amazing afterwards.
Yeah, what surprised me is how it compresses. I don't know if compresses is the right word, but basically
It
compresses
is. Yep.
the setting he used. Your legs at different portions, different parts of your legs. It moved up the leg and then down the leg, and then it did the whole leg. I just assumed, oh, you just sat in these things and it just did what it did, like it blew up like a balloon. But they're actually different things that it does, and there's some science behind it. So really cool.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. It's nice.
Ma- Yeah, we keep adding sponsors to this podcast, so maybe if they want to sponsor us, I really, really like that product. Talking about sponsors, we are supported by Stride Running Power Meters. Also, I don't know how you do it, how you find all of these cool data points every single week and cool things to talk about, but you did it again. We got some super cool data from Dakota. How do you say her name? I never know how to say her name. She ran
Papine.
Chicago Marathon. Papine.
Papine. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So she ran Chicago. She got seventh overall, second American, and she set a PR by quite a bit, a few minutes from memory. They put out a blog from this. So I'm on their email list. You should join it. I actually sent you this email and said, have a look at this, mate. So it was a really cool data breakdown for her across the marathon. I think there's lots to be learned here, whether or not you're interested in Stride per se. I think it's a great case study. We've got a link in the show notes. But it's really interesting because what you see is that she basically, for the first two thirds, they split the marathon into three thirds, which I think was an intentional decision around when she started to fall apart. But what you can see is in the first two thirds, her ground contact time and her legs is lower, and her leg spring stiffness is higher. So the way to think about that is she was spending less time on the ground. It was more poppy in the first two thirds, and then as fatigue sets in, yeah, the opposite starts to happen. You start to like sit on the ground longer. You're not quite as poppy, so your flight time is reduced. So that's a good suggestion of fatigue there, and you can actually see that in her stride metrics. So it's really cool. Interestingly, she had a similar output from a power perspective to her Boston Marathon run, which speaks to a couple of things. Probably a pacing was a different issue in Boston. Probably then some elemental factors as well that are part of Boston. And Chicago is pretty much a perfect day, so there's no surprises there.
Cool. If you would like to check out Stride Power running meters and have this kind of insight, these graphics you put up here are so interesting, man. We'll see if we can pop them onto social media, onto our Instagram page, 1% Better Pod. But if you'd like to have a look, check Stride out. We do have a link in the show notes down below, so do that. We got some community shout outs to get through. Thank you to every single person that subscribes to this podcast. And if you haven't done so yet, we'd really, really appreciate it if you have. One of our subscribers, Laurie Renack, and the Dutch Rugby League team beat Malta convincingly.
Yeah,
Is this a sport?
that's cool.
Talk to me. I'm reading names here that I haven't. Is this sport? Is this professional sport?
It's not professional sport, but it's sport, international sport. We had Mike Wood on the podcast. I don't know if you remember this because you weren't listening at the time, talking about the difference between rugby league and rugby union and how it started. But it's actually a really good episode. I've shared it with a few people who really like it. But yeah, so Laurie's a loyal listener, and him and the Dutch Lions went away and beat Malta, which was cool. It's cool to see that. I mean, they're very amateur, like very, very amateur, but that doesn't mean it's not important. It's international level. I think they're ranked certainly top 20 in the world. The question is like where in that. So yeah, it's cool to see.
And then we also heard from Chris Chambers.
Yeah, so Chris Chambers commented on Spotify saying how much he liked the interview with Phil Sessman. I also got a message from a friend of mine, a good friend of mine who I'm going to run for this weekend, and he's a listener, Tom GJ. So both of them really loved the Phil episode. That's actually going really well. So for those who haven't listened to last week's episode, go back and listen to that. That's going to be one of our more popular episodes, I can tell. Partially because it was a really good episode, and Phil's a popular guy, but just from the metrics we've seen so early, it's pretty clear that it's going to be a big episode for us.
And then a big shout out to Heather Louderback. You might know her more famous but less impressive husband, Spencer Louderback, who is our chief meme officer. His wife, Heather, ran 2:17 and a half marathon, fueled by precision chews. He let us know, and she doesn't have a preference of flavor. She loves them all. But I did want to say a big thank you to Spencer. If you follow us on Instagram on 1% Better Pod, every single week, Spencer sends us these incredible memes based off of our last episode. I don't know how he does it, how he keeps coming up with these ideas. And I just wanted to take a moment to pause and not take it for granted to say, Spencer, unbelievable, man. Thank you so much.
Yeah, it's weird because we sort of, like he sort of sent us a meme or two, and I was like, all right, next time he sends us one, we're going to make him chief meme officer and like leave it at that. And then as a result of doing that, we just get memes every week, which is just unreal. It was not something we talked about. It's not something we intended, but we do really appreciate it. So thank you, Spencer.
Did we have a poll on? I know you love publishing polls. Did we have a poll on the previous episode?
No, it was on the Berlin Marathon drama episode, so a couple weeks back, when you said I was just a podcaster, and nobody agreed, mate. Everyone said no, I'm not just a podcaster. So there you go, mate. You're wrong. You are wrong. Also, wanted to shout out Scott Crawshaw. So he did Ironman California. So it was a bit of a tough day. He had a bit of an asthma attack, and missed his goal. But it's still huge to have completed an Ironman. I think he went 11 hours, or just over 10 hours. Sorry. Somewhere in the 10 to 11 hour range. I think he was shooting for sub 10. So, it's really impressive nonetheless. So congratulations there.
And then a shout out to John Burchett Sharp, who DM'd us on Instagram. He said, I ran a new PB in a MCR half marathon. He did 1 hour 30 and came 19th in his age group. Very impressive. I love how John updates us on his athletic abilities and plans and goals. And I love the long-term view he has, how he's making decisions based on long-term health. Clearly a loyal listener to this podcast and listens to your advice.
I love it. Also, shout out to Jenna de Goe. She's been getting a few shout outs recently. She did the Amsterdam half as a training run, did a bit of a pickup in the last sort of 5Ks or so from memory. So she ran 1:58 there. So congratulations. We've got more on Amsterdam Marathon coming up, but congratulations to Johanna there.
My last shout out is to Stephen Lancaster. This is a very difficult episode for me because unfortunately we lost one of our dogs this week to a tumor. Oliver, who you might have heard barking from episode 1 in the background. We lost him this week. It's all I'm going to say before I break down. But just a shout out to Stephen Lancaster to say he was thinking of us and he's going to miss Oliver's barks in the background. So the only bark you might hear in the background from now is from Bentley Boy, who's still with us here. So thanks for that kind message, Stephen Lancaster.
Yeah, I wasn't going to bring up the fact that you were sort of attention seeking on Instagram the other day, mate. But we'll leave it at that.
I can't joke, man. I can't talk about this. We need to move on.
I'm sorry.
Right, we are sponsored by Core Body Temperature Sensors, and courtesy of them, we'll continue to bring you some heat training related content. Joining us now is a regular guest on this podcast, Eloise du Luart, fresh off her 2-race block and in full heat training mode for Ironman 70.3 Langkawi, where the average water temperature is 28 degrees Celsius, 83 degrees Fahrenheit. So you can only imagine the air temperature. She's fresh off of some great results, so her ego's gotten even bigger since she was here last time. But Elo, welcome back to the pod.
It's good to be back, and feel grounded being back on this podcast even after my last few results.
Yeah, it's some good results. You have some good results, but we did chat to you a bit about this beforehand when we were early stages talking to Core about coming on talking because you're doing some heat training. So let's talk about your heat training. How's it gone? Why did you start? And aside from I'm racing Langkawi and it's going to be hot. I guess what training have you done? What have you been doing?
So I started actually a few weeks ago, and I was a solid. I think I was speaking to you. A solid 7 days in. Washing was up because all the layers I've been doing. Working out sauna timetables, which is harder than I thought because my local one caught on fire because it was too hot. So I had to readjust.
Wow.
And it was going well. I know, classic, just too strong. Learning to suck and sort of finding new limits, I think. But I was embracing it because I found it really fun because it's something different. And I'm a big believer if you have put your mind to it, well, it's an hour of your life, you see what happens. But it wasn't as easy as that. And then I had to take a little break because I actually got a bit ill / may have overdone it because I was probably not topping up my sweat properly in terms of I think I got seriously dehydrated. So note to self. Then I went racing. But luckily, it was a bit warmer there than it is in the UK, and now I'm back on it. So I'm back on day 3 of heat training again, just fresh out the sauna. It's a little bit red. Even when in the steam room today, David, so you'll be proud as you gave me a funny look when I said, "Oh, the steam room is horrid." You're like, "Well, you are racing in the steam room, so you probably should go in the steam room." And then but I'm not going to lie, I'm very daunted about Langkawi. Obviously, looking at real feel versus real temperature. Like I looked at the other day and I saw 29. I thought that's not that bad. I've raced in hotter. And then I looked at the real feel because obviously it's super humid and I've never raced in humidity, and it's like 36 in the shade, 39 not in the shade, and I thought, that's hot. Got back in the sauna. So a lot of learning, but it's hard, and also it's a thing you just don't know until you arrive, because I've been getting longer in the sauna and feeling it can do much longer than I've ever done, but you just don't know.
Yeah. How have you found it? Like, so you mentioned enjoyable. You mentioned like the hiccups you had in terms of like overcooking it one day. We were on a run together, and you all of a sudden things were going a little bit pear shaped for you. But how have you found it in general?
But apart from that run where I think my whole body just shut down, and I think if it wasn't running with you, I think I would have been like, I just need to walk. It's so hard.
Well, to be fair, we did walk for part of it, so
we did walk. Oh, it's true. But I had done a run like 3 days earlier, in more layers, and it was slightly better pace in terms of and I've been totally fine. My heart rate had just gone up a little bit, but not. I think I was at 168 with you. We were doing 5-minute kilometers or something, and I was like, "Yeah, we'll get that down." Oh, it's come down 162. It was still just awful. But apart from that, which was a bit of a reality check, really, I have found it fun. I find it hard. Like I find the hot water immersion the hardest, and that gets almost gets a panic response, which in the past when I've suffered in heat, because I never knew you had to do heat training when I was younger, I used to get this panic response as soon as I got hot, and then obviously you get hotter and then you implode, because that's how it works. But the only thing that really brings that on is hot water immersion for me. Like layers, it sucks and your heart rate goes up, but I don't find it as bad as hot water immersion. So I could do it, for example, what I've been doing is a hard session, totally normal, so I can get the quality in, then going into a hot bath. And even after 20 minutes, I'm mentally, I'm climbing out of it, completely gone, and sort of, as I said, just getting this panic response. And then once I'm out, I'm lying on my bed in a towel for 20 minutes, wondering what's happened. But no other thing does that to me. So I'm not sure if that's because it's, inverted commas, better, or it's just different. You probably have a scientific answer for that.
First things first, if you or anybody who's listening is going to do hot water immersion, be really careful when you get out the bath, because you can get a big drop in blood pressure. So just be really careful you don't get dizzy and fall. Second thing, the reason hot water is so much more confronting, and I wouldn't say more effective, just different dosing, is that water conducts heat better than air does, which is why cold water is so dangerous, because you can die because you can't keep your heat in properly. So the problem is you have no way to dissipate heat when you're in hot water. Right, so the way we dissipate heat, convection, which is you lose heat to the environment. Well, it's going the other way. You're absorbing it. Conduction, again, similarly.
I was absorbing
it. Evaporation, so sweating, but you're covered in water. And there's another one, convection, conduction, evaporation. There's another one there, radiation. But again, it's radiating into you, not out of you. So basically, there is no way for you to get rid of heat, and you're just absorbing it all. So yes, it is much less pleasant. And it's really, I guess, hard. How are you tracking this at all? Are you tracking anything with your heat training? Is the question.
Heart rate. Been doing heart rate.
Okay.
Heart
so
rate
you're looking at
very important.
So you
time.
When you say that, are you doing that on passive or active or both?
Both.
Okay. And so on an active session, you're looking for that heart rate to be stable, given a lower power output, or are you riding a power and looking at heart rate? What are you doing there?
So, for example, what I did yesterday, and that was just excessive layers, which you'd be proud of. I was actually running really low power because obviously I've been racing, so I'm still trying to sort of physically recover whilst putting a heat stress in, which is, again, we don't want to overdo that while being completely cooked for race day.
Yep.
But I was trying to get my heart rate to a slightly artificially high heart rate for that power, but also keeping it low. So I was literally riding 150 watts, which is low for me, and I should usually my heart rate for that would be 125, 129, and I got it to
Yep.
140 and then just held it at 140.
Yeah.
So
And
at
just
this,
on that, what for a session like that, would you usually ride a higher wattage and then hit a similar heart rate? Is that how you're doing it?
So if I had an aerobic, this was only an hour and I think 15. I think I only did an hour in the end because I was really pressed for time on that day. But I'd be riding higher wattage for the same heart rate.
Yeah.
Or if I wanted to do a really low heart rate session, if it's like zone one, complete active recovery, I'd have like low watts and low heart rate versus putting the stress in the heart rate.
Perfect.
Great. Thanks for joining us, Elo.
Yeah, thank you, and obviously appreciate appreciate Core sponsoring the podcast. Please do follow the link in our show notes to go check out their website. That does help us and it helps them. And thank you for joining us, Elo. And we're going to be watching you in Langkawi as you're heat adapted and ready to go.
Thank you. Yeah, it might be a survival of the most adapted race, but I'm excited and I'll report back, I'm sure.
Awesome.
Let's have a look at what's come across my desk. Some quick bits for you. Remi Bonnet broke the VK world record. Was he the one wearing the Red Bull helmet, the video that you sent me?
Correct, it was. So Remi's obviously a Red Bull athlete. So the VK is a vertical kilometer. For those who work in metrics, that makes sense. For those who work in imperials, it's going to be a little bit difficult for you. We'll get there. But he did this. So the vertical kilometer is a style of race, and it has a certain amount of vertical gain, 1,000 meters, 1 kilometer, that is, which is the equivalent to 3,280 feet vertical. And that has to be done under a certain distance of horizontal. I think it's 5 kilometers or 3 miles, or it might be more like 8 and 5 miles, but I'm not sure. Need to check that. Anyway, point is, there's a famous course in La Foulie in Switzerland where the gradient gets up to 60% in parts.
Wow.
Which is wild. Anyway, so he did it on this course, and so he went 27 minutes 21 for 1,000 meters vertical and 1.92 horizontal kilometers, which is, as we said, the 3,280 vertical feet, and it's 1.193 miles. So that is so steep. It gives him a vertical speed. And this is interesting because this is something that trail runners sometimes track. And when I'm climbing well and having a good day, I can hit about 1,000 to 1,100 meters an hour, right? He was hitting 2,100 meters an hour. So 2,183 meters an hour, or 7,162 feet an hour. That's how fast his ascent rate was, his vertical speed. So just unbelievably impressive. And interestingly, vertical K performance tracks almost linearly with your VO2 max. It's a very linear relationship, which makes sense given what you're trying to do. And also, if you watch the video, he's using poles as well. And the more muscle you have active, the more VO2 you're using, the more oxygen you're consuming as a result of it. You're actually a little bit less efficient doing that. But yeah, it's crazy to watch. Go watch this. It's on his Instagram. It's on bloody Salamon's Instagram. It's on everyone's Instagram. You'll find it. This guy's running up what looks like a ladder. And it's just crazy to see.
I was asking you why they use helmets because that surprised me seeing that video. But you mentioned the 60% gradient. I assume there's a real chance of, I don't know, tripping, falling, and then falling down backwards on these steep gradients.
There's actually a double VK that happens on the Italian side of Mont Blanc in Courmayeur. And you go up the Hellbronner up towards the top of Mont Blanc, and it's a double VK, so you do 2,000 vertical meters. In the second half, you actually have to drop your poles and put on a helmet because of falling rocks as well. So I don't think his helmet was for falling rocks. I think part of it was, probably like him falling or something like that. Because I mean, at 60%, especially with like that sort of level of exhaustion, you're not too far off falling and then hitting your head. So yeah, it would make sense.
Yeah. Thanks for that. Thanks for finding that, man. And then we had another world record with the women's 24-hour world record for running going down at the 24-hour world championships. Tell us more about that.
Yeah, well, I mean, firstly, this wasn't around a track per se, which I think is great for the runners. It was around this loop on the road. So this was Sarah Webster from Great Britain. She's pretty new to ultra running, and is a veterinarian. So she's an amateur, which is cool. She came third in the 2023 50K World Champs and then third in the 2024 100K World Champs. So she completed 278.622 kilometers, which is 173.127 miles. The previous world record was 8 kilometers or 5 miles shorter than this, which is quite a way to break it by. So she exceeded the previous record, which was Japan's Miho Nakata. We talked about already by how much, which was set at prior event, which was 2023. It's particularly impressive because it's not usually broken by much. She had an hour to spare, so she broke this and then had an hour, which I think is awesome.
Crazy.
Yeah, I think it's quite interesting because there's so much room for opportunity here in terms of optimization. Because like there's just so much time and so many factors that go into it. I'm interested in like whether the loop makes a difference. So in this case, it was 1.5 kilometers, which is just under a mile. It's like 0.93 of a mile. So I'm wondering if that makes a difference in terms of the psychology and the mental aspects of this. So she did
Definitely.
185. She did 185 full loops with a partial loop in there as well, which is just so many loops.
I mean, compared to I've seen this done on the track before, so that you'd come around 400-meter track, I would definitely think the psychology of having a longer loop is, less. I don't know what the psychology is, but less fatigue. I don't know. It's more interesting. I don't know, like on a longer loop.
I'm also interested in, so on the track, generally what they do is they switch you every 6 hours or something. They make you like turn around and run the other way. I'm wondering if they do that with this loop as well. So I don't have an answer for you there. But her average speed for those trying to do the math in their heads was 5:11 per kilometer or 8:19 per mile. This includes her breaks. So she was running faster than that and then had breaks in there, for toilets and
Insane.
food and all that sort of stuff.
When I used to be a runner, I could barely run that on like my tempo runs. That is just insane. Next level, man. The next story I want to talk about is absolutely wild. I don't know if I'm naive or what, but these results totally shocked me. You found another instance of anonymized surveys showing a ton of athletes doping at the 2022 Commonwealth Games.
Yeah, I mean, I think they do these surveys every time, and then they just publicize the ones that are outrageous. But like they standard thing. They survey athletes. It's anonymized, and 1 in 5 were doping.
Wow.
1 in 5. So
Wow.
like
1 in 5. That is insane.
that's like almost 2 people in every final. To put
Wow.
it like in track and field thoughts, right? I mean, these numbers fluctuate a little bit, and I think it's probably based on who they survey and how big the survey is, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But like, it's probably safe to say that we're seeing a doper in every race, like, or every event, which is, I mean, it's not great.
It's
I don't
what
want
it
to say.
surprises me is that athletes will, okay, it's anonymous, but that athletes will still admit to this. It's almost like there's a bit of a guilty conscience, and they're trying to help the sport by admitting it. I don't know. If I was a doper, I don't know if if I would admit it, even if the survey was anonymous.
Looking at it charitably, you might say they don't want to be doping, but they feel they have to, so they want to show how big a problem it is, so they want to be honest about it.
Hmm.
Like they're going like, I don't want to be doing this, but I feel like everyone else is doing it, so I'm going to say I'm doping so people see this so that they can like start to get better at it, right? Because if everyone says no, then they go, well, there's no problem. See?
Hmm. And then the 1 in 5 comes out, and they're like, "Oh, damn, I'm that one. Oh no."
Yeah.
Oh,
If I responded that, then everyone else mustn't be doping. This is terrible. I'm the only
yeah,
cheat here. Yeah, I don't
yeah.
think anyone thinks that.
But yeah, let's. We had Phil Sesman on. You mentioned it. He did Amsterdam Marathon, and
Yep.
if you remember, if you listened to last week's episode, if you haven't yet, go and listen there. But he told us he wanted a 207 PB. He didn't care what it was, 207 something. He just wanted 207 something. I told him that, I mean, this podcast guarantees that people will come on this podcast, and then as a race shortly after, always achieve their goal. So you're welcome, Phil Sesman. But apart from us taking credit for that, or me taking credit mostly for that, what else went down there?
So he ran 207.16 for 10th at Amsterdam Marathon, which is huge for him. I sent him a congratulatory text, and he responded and asked how the race went. And he said it was great. He led for less than 1 kilometer of the race. He said 2 packs ended up amalgamating. He said it was great. Just couldn't have been better for him. Looking at his splits, he went through half in 63.50. So for those who are doing the math at home, that's a negative split by 24 seconds to finish it off. So that's how you run
Oh,
a marathon.
yes.
That is
Team
how you run a
negative split.
marathon.
Hell yes. Well done, Phil.
Particularly there because it's a very flat, right? So the two sides of it are the same. So the winner was Jeffrey Toroyatich Kipchumba. He went 2:03.30 for a bit of an upset. And the women's winner was Anyalem Desta, and she went 2:13.37. So it was obviously a good day for running. Those are fast times. That can't be right. 2:13 for a woman. Yeah, no, sorry, that is right. 2:13. Yeah, sorry. So yeah, good day for them. Stoked for Phil. Amsterdam is an interesting marathon because it has these couple of quick times. Like there's people who go there and do well. Like they've got a relationship with NN Running, so there's always like a couple of people doing really well there. So yeah, it's cool to see. I mean, I've run it. It's a great marathon. It's a good town. It's cool to start and finish in the old Olympic Stadium. So yeah, I have very blurry memories of entering that stadium thinking I've got to go here and just absolutely dropping the hammer to go like the half lap of the track.
What time did you run there?
It's like 2:58:57, something like that. So like very just under 2:59.
What year was that?
2018. Yeah, I think it's 2018, something like that.
Okay.
Yep.
Sub 3 back then already. Wow. I was actually watching
in
the
old
coverage.
shoes, mate. In old shoes.
Yeah, exactly. I could probably add, I don't know, another 7 minutes onto that. Or take another 7 minutes off that if you're wearing super shoes. I was watching Amsterdam Marathon and I was very intrigued by Tom Dumoulin. Now, cycling fans might know that name. He's a former professional cyclist. He's won the Giro d'Italia, former time trial world champion, been on the podium of the Tour de France. When he was cycling, he was the real deal, and he retired very early, a couple of years ago, due to mental fatigue. But obviously, he's Dutch. He was a draw card, brought media attention to the race, so the TV cameras were focusing on him a lot, and he was running with the lead women's pack for a while.
Yeah, I mean, stupidly, yes, he was. Go back and listen to our Determinants of Endurance Performance podcast. It was from November 8th, 2024. It's a top 3 episode of ours of all time. So go back and listen to that. It talks about why he'd be good here. But the simple way to think about this, and I said this to a lot of cyclists, we used to work with some cyclists. I remember Bobby Julich going out running his first ever run, did like a 10K in 37 minutes or something, aged like nearing 50 or maybe in his 50s. And I said the same thing to him at the time. Cyclists have a Ferrari or a Dodge Ram or whatever enormous engine you want on a VW chassis. They've never done anything to load their bones properly or their tendons. And so these guys and girls, they can run unbelievable times and they just can't tolerate the pounding. So there's a great clip of Tom Dumoulin, and I listen to the Dutch because I speak Dutch and it's hilarious. It probably doesn't translate so well to English, but him talking about like somewhere that was about 25 to 28 Ks in the race, I think, from my memory of the race, just as you come off the Amstel before you go into Devendrecht. But yeah, he was just like, yeah, the legs are gone. And yeah, unsurprised. He felt fine centrally. And if you look at the paces, he was running like 3:20s or less with the women's pack and ended up running closer to 4 minutes. So his half split was 109.09, and he ended up running 2:29. So it's a 10-minute positive split.
Wow.
And he finished closer, like running closer to 247, 248 pace. So like not great from him in that context. But he says he can't train any more than he does. But because he can't run anymore because his body won't let him or whatever, and that's fine. I would be encouraging some gym work or something like that because like he's just or some cycling and then running because like he just doesn't have the physical like ability to tolerate the loading and he'll never run faster than this. But I mean, he's got potential. Like it wouldn't surprise me if he does some stuff for him to run in the 2 teens. He's got that potential.
He's got
the
engine for that. Yeah. Just the pacing thing as well. Like just start a little slower. I think he would have even achieved that on Sunday if he started a little slower. I think he would have been faster than 2:29. I know we're making it sound like 2:29 is an incredible time. It's a really good time, but I do think he left a lot of meat on the bone. I think he's capable of so much more, and yeah, hopefully this isn't his last marathon.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, for him, pacing's hard though because that's probably the right intensity from a cardiovascular standpoint. So like. He probably hasn't done.
Him. Oh, it
was easy for him. Yeah, that's the problem. Is like what limits him is not what limits us. He's literally like he's like just can't tolerate it. So, and I wonder if he's been doing the long runs he needs to be doing and those sort of things, or if he can't get that done in training. So, yeah, it's interesting.
Maybe I'll take a shot in the dark, stab in the dark. Maybe message him, see if we can get him to come on. Let's see. Talking about ex-pro cyclist, newly retired cyclist Geraint Thomas, who just finished his career at the Tour of Britain in September, he's immediately started running after his former Tour de France winner put his bike aside. He did a park run, didn't he?
Yeah, he ran 20 minutes in a park run there or thereabouts. He's motivated by his younger brother who ran quite fast. I don't know exactly what it was. I heard him talking about this, but it was like 220 or 230. So,
Yeah.
G, same old story. They all love to run. I think it's a nice way for cyclists to. It's much more time efficient. It's about a 4:1 from a time efficiency standpoint. So, I get why they all do it. It's they enjoy it. So, I hope to see G doing more of this. I think again, won the Tour de France. The guy's obviously horrifically physically talented. Now let's see if he can develop that chassis a little bit.
I think we'll see him doing an Ironman. I heard him talking on a podcast. It was on his own podcast, I think. He's very good friends with Cam Worth, having been teammates before and trained together often. So Cam has been pushing him to do an Ironman, and he did not say no. He said it is something that intrigues him. So let's see. Keep an eye on this. It's not the last time we'll be talking about Geraint Thomas on this podcast. We'll see where it goes. And then last week we wanted to talk about this, but we ran out of time. A couple of names that will be lining up in the Valencia Marathon: Clayton Young, Kira Diamato, Lindsay Flanagan, and Emma Bates.
Yeah. This is exciting. So it's obviously a bunch of American names. They've added them to Valencia. Valencia, I think I've talked about this before. Valencia's set themselves up. They're like, we are where you come to run fast. We are not a world marathon major. We don't want to be a world marathon major. We don't care. And people are, and we talked to Phil a bit about this, people are double dipping with this stuff where they can, Clayton ran the world champs, but then he can go run Valencia. Whereas Connor Mance, his training partner, runs Chicago and he only gets one bite at the cherry or the apple or whatever. And Clayton gets to do well in a championship race, but also run fast, right? Because that's where Valencia is a fast course. It's always got good weather. It's got great packs, particularly if you're not 202, 201. There's some really good packs there. There's a ton of national records broken there every year. So we're seeing a bunch of people go there. I'm really excited to see, these athletes, particularly, specifically Emma Bates, because she's run really well over really tough courses. New York, Boston, etc. Now I want to see how fast she can actually run, right? But there are certainly some runners who do better on those courses, whether it's to do with their physiology or their pacing or something like this. People like Molly Seidel, etc., do probably overperform on hilly courses with respect to flat courses. So it'd be interesting to see where Emma Bates converts to. But yeah, it's really interesting. And the way the calendar is now, you can get 3 races in a year, kind of like what Phil's doing, but certainly with Valencia there and now Sydney, which is early in the fall, you can kind of get this, first half of the year or, spring marathon or whatever you want to call it, depending on which hemisphere you're in. Then you get Sydney, which is sort of almost mid-year, not quite mid-year. And then you get a very late year Valencia in. So you could certainly do that. And, as an elite and triple dip almost. Now, you're not going to get the same appearance fees for Valencia or whatever, but if you run fast, you will get paid. That's what it boils down to.
My memory's so bad. Did we ask Phil Sesman last week about that? I know it was on the list to ask him about 3 marathons a year. Do you remember what he said?
Yeah, he's doing Valencia. So, yeah, we talked about that. We talked about his training between now and Valencia. So, yes.
I remember
Yeah,
that.
we talked about all that.
It's a delicate
Good,
a delicate dance. Really good to see him go PB in Amsterdam. 7 weeks later, lining up in Valencia, going to be very interesting too. I know you said this week is a deloading week, doing nothing, and then picking it up again.
I saw on social the calories he's got for this week. He put up all his food on an Instagram story. Jeez, that's a lot of food. But the other thing to remember, and this is something that we need to underscore for listeners, when it comes to taper and recovery, his ability to taper or his need for taper, he has more room to move. If you're running 40 kilometers a week, you can't really taper much. What are you going to taper to? Nothing. You can't taper that. So when you've got 140 miles a week, he can cut that down to 80 miles a week. It's like a 50% reduction. It's still a lot of running. So there's that aspect. Now he won't do that, but what I'm getting at is his ability to taper is more. But also he tapers for a period of time and then runs a marathon. He runs 30 something kilometers most days. So him running a marathon, yes, it's stressful and it's intense and all those other things. And even 42 kilometers trying hard at quasi race pace is not as stressful as an actual race because of all the other stress around it. Sure, I'll give you that. But if we think about his ability to tolerate load, his ability is much better than yours because he's used to running 140 miles a week plus doing sessions. So his recovery is going to be quicker because it's not as big a chunk of his maximal potential. So yes, it's his fastest ever run, but 40 kilometers hard or 42.2 kilometers hard, 26.2 miles hard for him to tolerate, that is a much smaller stressor comparative to his normal week than it would be for you or me.
The whole time you're talking, I'm just thinking, I hate this guy. I hate this guy. I hate these talented guys. Like it's just like, oh, they just so physiologically gifted and incredible. But also, you got to use that gift correctly. You got to be smart, make smart decisions. And Phil definitely seems to be one of those people. So we're gonna revisit that, see how he goes in Valencia a couple of weeks time from now. The other thing I wanted to talk to you about is it kept coming across my social feeds. It is inescapable, maybe even inexcusable. I want your take on this. The UCI sent out a press release on ketone use and said there is no compelling evidence that ketone supplements enhance performance or recovery. The UCI sees no reason for them to be used. Therefore, the UCI does not recommend the inclusion of such supplements in riders' nutrition plans. Now, if you're not familiar with ketones, straight after a bike race, you'll see the camera focusing on the riders on the finish line. They will grab a little small bottle and drink that straight away. Those are ketones. David,
Usually they get handed a couple of bottles. One is often water, and then they get offered a bottle of red stuff, that's tart cherry juice. They'll often drink that, and then they'll take the shot of ketones usually. So it's usually that order where they go tart cherry juice first. But yes, you're spot on. There's lots to say here. There's so much to say here, and
I'm
I'll
here
try and
for
go
it.
through
I
it.
want to hear. I know this is a space that you have a lot of knowledge on and expertise on. So I wanted to hear your take on this. I was really taken aback by this press release.
I think the most important thing is to understand the context here. So let's set that up. So ketones have never at any point been banned by the World Anti-Doping Association, right? WADA's never banned. They've never been on the banned list. They've never been on the tested list. They've never been on the monitored list or anything. Partially because your body produces them naturally, right? So this is the most similar thing to think of when it comes to ketones is carbohydrate gels. Would they be banned in training, in racing or training? No. Why? Well, because we can they're part of sort of natural thing. You couldn't really test for them. They're existing anyway. So that's the best probably corollary to draw. But at some point, the UCI said these should not be used. We discourage their use. They weren't banned, but the UCI came out and said you shouldn't be using these, right? And then there was the MPCC, which is, I don't know, it's French for something, but basically it's anti-doping related. And they formed this team to talk about clean sport, right? And the MPCC teams agreed to not using ketones. And then
the MPCC is basically a body founded by the teams to say, we stand for clean sport. We want to clean up the image of the sport. We will adhere to all these rules we agreed to. Voluntarily.
But exactly. And not related to WADA again.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Then a couple of teams were like, this is actually not doing what it should be doing. We're going to leave it and we're going to start using ketones. Right. So, and then.
Cycling. Oh.
And then many of the MPCC teams were not encouraging riders to use ketones, but riders from those teams were using ketones anyway. Right. And working with nutrition staff. So like, that's the context here. Then in the last couple of years, as this has happened, the UCI has not put out a statement. The teams have been saying, we need a statement from the UCI on ketone use. We need a statement, we need a statement, we need a statement, we need a statement. And the UCI sat on their hands. The teams are getting pissed off at this, right? And then eventually the UCI is probably taking the opportunity. They've seen a couple of papers that have come out in the last little while that have not been so positive. And the UCI is like, great, let's do this now. Let's put this out now and make this statement. So now we have a statement out. Teams can see it and do all that, right? So that's kind of the context here. And this is also in the context of the UCI banning use of continuous glucose monitors because they're against a rule, but then allowing continuous hydration monitors and all these other monitors, right? Which are almost identical. So it's worthwhile considering here that they have a track record of not being congruent and doing things that are sort of as we need to, as we want to, rather than being a very sort of logical, methodical organization. Then we'll get to the statement. Science isn't really done like this, right? So like, they say the consensus that such substances have no effect on performance during endurance exercise. That is the current understanding. But that's not to say this won't change. And that's also not to say, again, when we're dealing with elite sport, there is the research, which is done on whoever, and then there is how that applies to the individual, right? The way I explained this in my newsletter when talking to people was talking about a Yelp review. If I tell you the local Thai restaurant is great and everybody else agrees with it, it's got a 5-star rating, but you have the gene defect where you hate the taste of coriander or cilantro if you're American, and you go there and they use cilantro in every dish, you're going to hate it. That's not because the reviews are wrong. That's because you're different, right? And so in elite sport, these guys are such outliers that just because the research says X doesn't mean it doesn't work in that context. Why do I bring this up? Because I know there are riders who are using this during races. I've seen it on TV. I sent you videos of it and said, that's ketones. So you go, well, hang on a second. Why are they doing that? Either they're stupid and the teams are stupid, or they're smart and they know something and they've seen something that we don't, right? And there's a third option, which is they're using it and it's placebo and whatever. Like, I'll be intellectually honest about that. And in the elite sporting environment, placebo is a helpful thing at times and it can be a problem, right? My point being here is at the moment, the way it looks, this statement's probably correct, but to say there's consensus, I think is probably not quite, or that to speak about it as though it's final and it'll never be different, I think is not the way to think about this here. Then they say, more recently, research has now contradicted these earlier findings. The results of a very comprehensive, high-quality study show that taking ketones after competition or high-intensity training sessions has no effect on the quality of recovery. And this is actually a good example of how the stuff evolves. There was good indication that it helped recovery. Then there's a couple of things recently that look maybe not so much. We have to understand this in context of the total picture here. So that's the first thing. The second thing is they don't cite the research. They could have easily put a reference in there. And I think it's pretty poor form that they don't.
Maybe they just forgot.
Maybe. I've seen a couple of these papers in the last month or two that have come out that haven't been positive. I've read them and I'm like, okay, that's interesting, and trying to understand them in context. And I've been emailing researchers about it, trying to understand it. Because again, we need to look at the totality of the research, not any one paper. And they're good quality studies. I get it. But the question here is who's telling the UCI this stuff, right? I went looking for the science team. I'm like, okay, they'll have a scientific advisory board or something on their website. They don't. I looked on LinkedIn, found every cyclist in the world who works for the UCI, but zero people who were actually, like zero people who were employed as scientists. So I can't work out how they made those decisions or how they got to that point. So it's interesting. Like, the last thing I'll say is I've seen two papers in the last little while ahead of print, which is to say they haven't been reviewed yet, or they're in the late stages of review. I can't say too much more because I'm not meant to have seen these, but they are from researchers, one of which was a review and a review works by looking at all the research, and they contradict this exact statement from the UCI. So science is evolving. I think the statement is convenient for them, which is good. And I think it's done well for them in that context. But I do think it's a little bit naive in many ways. So let's see where this goes.
Just before we wrap it up quick, I have a question for you, because you said earlier, ketones is produced naturally in the body, so therefore should be used, blah, blah. Does our body not produce EPO as well? But EPO is banned, excessive EPO. So where's the difference?
So this is a good question. Here's a question for you. Should eating a steak be banned?
No.
Okay. Drinking protein powder?
No, I don't think so.
Yeah. What about amino acids?
I don't know what that is.
So it's like the building blocks that make up. It's the building blocks that make up protein.
No, because again, protein occurs naturally in the body. Yeah. But
it's
but
part
I'm
of
saying,
food or whatever. Yeah.
But why is EPO banned?
What about injecting amino acids? Should that be illegal, or should that be allowed?
Oh, now we're getting into how we should take it, and that's
there's your answer.
Murky
that's the,
okay.
But that's the answer. That's why EPO is banned for the most part, is that people are injecting it, and it's artificially, like a hormone, like any other hormones, growth hormone, testosterone, all those things, right? So that's kind of why, versus it being nutritional, right? So this is a hormone the body produces rather than nutrition that we eat or that we produce endogenously. So yes, the EPO correlate, I get what you're saying, but there's it's slightly different because it's a hormone and because it's injected. I think it's different. Like if people were injecting ketones, it'd be a problem. Just like if they're, there's a limit to the number of injections you have.
Can you inject it? Because the taste, most of the brand's taste is awful. Injecting sounds not so bad to me.
Spoken like a guy who's had a lot of needles in his life. Yeah, probably. I'd rather deal with the taste. Yeah, but no. So like the other thing I'll say to you is, just to finish off this thing, I don't think it's for the UCI to tell the cycling teams how to do their jobs. Like if they want to use it, they get to use it. Right, is the first thing, and I think that's part of it. I will also tell you that I will all but guarantee you that every cycling team saw this and went, cool, we'll keep using it. Thanks very much.
Yeah.
So that's where we can leave it at that.
Just so interesting that the UCI has decided to take a stance on this. I need to think about it some more and come up with some conspiracy theories as to why they did that. And then I wanted to move on to another story. We seem to be talking about Athlos a lot, but I think that the owner, Alexis O'Nien, is that how you say his name? I think he's married to Serena Williams. I think he's been listening to the podcast.
Yeah, maybe, hopefully. But he was talking about where Athlos is going, and he talked about a league, talked about teams that you could support, non-endemic sponsors, all this stuff. And I just think this is where we have to go. I mean, ideally in track and field, but certainly in track, where you have a team that you support, rather than individuals. You have someone to shout for, even if you don't have anybody that you know in the race. They're a whatever team. This is the problem in cycling, is like Visma Lease a bike. Next year it's Jumbo Visma. Next week, you need a team that is whatever, the killer bees, right, as they like to be called, sponsored by whoever. And then you have your major sponsors. They should be non-endemic, and then you have shoe brands, etc., as minor sponsors rather than major sponsors, because that way you can allow people to be whatever, different teams and that sort of stuff. I mean, ideally you don't have ideally that's an individual sponsor rather than you have them sponsoring a full team, because you don't want to see Nike versus Adidas, although that is quite interesting to some degree. What I'd like is Nike and Adidas athletes together on a team that's sponsored by Mercedes or whatever.
Yeah, I'm helping out a team from East Africa called Team Amani, and Amani means peace in Swahili. That's the identity of the team. The team is working to bring African athletes to globalize cycling. I think that's the way forward. You have a brand, you have an identity, something that you stand for, and then all these partners buy into that mission. I think it's really cool because fans buy into it. So I'm here for that. Completely agree.
It's also, if you think about cycling, it's so hard. Like people will go like, oh, this team used to be this, or like they'll write an article about Team Rabobank, and that's, oh yeah, and today that's this team. And I'm like,
what?
How?
Yeah.
So unless you're like steeped in it, it's like that meme of the guy who's there at the crazy guy pointing at the wall with all the things. Like it feels like it used to be Rabobank and now it's this and now it's this. Like that's what it feels like to me as a sort of partial cycling person, not really a cycling person, So yeah.
And then moving on to triathlon news, I sort of saw this. I don't have the details, so I'm hoping you have the details for me. T100 are making some changes. Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, this is a bit of a mess. We talked a little bit a while ago, and I sort of said T100 has lost its luster for me. I've stopped enjoying it, partially because the people who are racing, like it's become its own distance. Middle distance is no longer where short course and long course athletes meet. It's where there are middle distance specialists and then some long course athletes, some short course athletes coming up. The long course athletes are very rarely racing it as much anymore, and T100 is sort of feeling the pinch of that. I guess there's lots of things to think about here. Let's get into what's changing, then we can talk about implications for it. So the what's changing, there are going to be fewer mandatory races. So previously they contracted athletes that had a certain number of races they had to do a year, and they would go there and they would get money for that. They're not doing that. So they've reallocated funds. They're not contracting people. Now they have rankings-based invitations to each event, but then they increase the prize money. So instead of, I'm going to pay you to be an athlete for us and you have to race this many races and then you win prize money, it's your prize money is just going to go up. So there's a 275.
Sounds to me like they found ways to reduce their bottom line, reduce their costs.
Maybe it's that, but also I don't know what they were paying athletes and how this works out. I don't know if this shakes out to be cheaper or not. But
I can guarantee you it shapes up to be cheaper for them, but more maybe for the winners, more reward for at the top end.
Yeah, maybe. Maybe they have to pay people for do media, that sort of stuff, pay more people to fly, whatever. I don't know. But anyway, the point is, it's now 275K fund per race. It's basically 50K for the winner, 40K, then 30K, down to 3.5K for 20th place, right? They're going to basically invite people based on their rankings to each event, which is fine. They're going from 8 events to 4 men's and 4 women's events, and they're alternating them. So rather than having a men's and women's event at each thing, so they go to wherever, Singapore, and they race men's and women's, that'll be a men's race or a women's race, and then the next one will be whatever. I assume the final will be both, but who knows? It's interesting here. I think it could be good for them in that using a more rankings-based system, they'll probably also invite some local people, and I think it'll probably work better for them in that context. You also, instead of people like who want to focus on something like the Ironman World's Championships or something like that, instead of them saying, well, I'm not going to do T100 because I'm I don't want to take the contract because I don't want to do all that racing. Now they can sort of dip in, and it would make sense for them. So you probably will see a bit more of that racing, I think, particularly if they want a payday. Quite frankly, is one of the things. Then we'll get to the implications of this, which is basically what happens with upstarts is they force an adjustment, right? We've seen this in Super League in Australia with the Super League versus NRL war. You see this with Live Golf, and then there's some coexisting examples, and Live Golf is one of them to some degree, but certainly like T20 cricket is a good example. The IPL really disrupted cricket, and then it sort of now coexists. Maybe you could use the XFL, which then merged with the USFL to become the UFL, where they sort of coexist and then feed to some degree the NFL a little bit. I'm not sure how like Live Golf, maybe it's too early there, but anyway. The question here is really, how does T100 maintain its relevance? So when it started, this was about the athletes aren't paid because they weren't paid much by Ironman. We need to create a season-long narrative and more racing where the best race each other, and we're going to contract people and we're going to create these narratives and this stuff. And some of it was really good at the time. And certainly what I loved, again, speaking to what we just spoke to with Athlos, is like the Collins Cup. Because the Collins Cup was US versus Europe versus the rest of the world. And they would race. It was match racing, and you had a team that you shouted for, and it was great, and it was cool. And that was one of my first times ever watching triathlon, like much triathlon. I was like, oh, this is great. This is really cool. Like, I don't know any of these people, but like, I get that, and this is cool. And I'm yelling for team whatever. So that made some sense. But now it's like, yeah, okay, same story, different day, whatever.
Let's see how that plays out. I think it does. You're right on coexisting. I think it does has to coexist alongside Ironman. I think you do need to see all the athletes racing under both brands. Those brands have to find a way to coexist. And I think maybe T100 has realized that. Maybe they've done the work up front, and now they're going to benefit from contracting those athletes up front. But now finding a way to reduce their costs, but also reducing the stringent measures of who races so that less racing for both genders does allow athletes more room to race under both brands. Maybe we'll see that more. I'm looking forward to seeing how this unfolds.
Yeah, it's also worth remembering that it's a fundamental TV product. So they need a race, but not having two at the same time doesn't really make a huge difference for them. It's not a big issue. It makes the broadcast shorter, so it might be better. The interesting thing is like Ironman's had to adjust. So the Ironman Pro Series exists, and all that money exists because of the T100. Right. So this is what I was talking about with the Super League versus NRL war in Australia, where like this upstart comes, pays money, and then everyone's like, oh, now we have to pivot this. And then like the incumbent is like, oh, no, we can actually make this work. And so you certainly, like if you think about season long narratives and that sort of stuff, it's happening in Ironman. Like that's actually where like the Ironman Pro Series is kind of doing that. So, yeah.
Yeah. You see this in brands. Brands disrupt, they create something. You see it in corporates as well. They create a whole new industry. Someone else comes in, does it better, and then forces change overall. And then there's, the relevance of certain players shifts depending on the time they got into the market. So yeah, looking forward to seeing where this one unfolds. I do want to talk about an article you sent me from the Washington Post where US colleges are recruiting Kenyan athletes. I find this very, 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 very interesting.
Yeah, and unsurprising to some degree, right? Like colleges, they provide a useful system and a useful filtering system and a development place, but at the same time, they just want to win. They don't care if they're developing athletes; they just want to win. Like that's really what it boils down to. So, listen, so some context here. Last season, Kenyan women took the top 3 places in the NCAA cross country championships. They were all Kenyans, right? And Texas Tech last year recruited a 28-year-old Solomon Kipchoge, whose half marathon time at the time of recruitment as a freshman was faster than the American record. So,
wow.
So like that's just some context here. But in essence, this has come about because of changes in eligibility. Basically, it's easier to recruit Kenyans now, basically. And it sounds like it's a bit of a result of like post-COVID and some stuff that had to change there and a couple of other changes. But basically, someone has seen a business opportunity and they've set up a pipeline here. Specifically, the article mentioned, and there's a link to the article in our show notes, and which is free as well, a company called Scholarbook. So Scholarbook has recently increased its staff to more than 90 employees. Each university pays this company $30,000 a year for recruiting, according to Scholarbook. So each of their universities recruiting. So that's wild. So basically, what happens is these colleges fund trials that companies like Scholarbook set up with qualifying times for US scholarships. So in the article mentioned it
In
was an eight.
Kenya.
Yes, at
Yeah.
in wherever. So in the
Alderot, I
article,
think it was.
Eldoret, yeah. So that would make sense. That's where the sort of running hub is. The article was talking about an 8-minute 12, 3,000 meters because they're giving them a bit of leeway because like the track's not quite great quality or whatever else, and they'll get better or whatever. So yeah, that's kind of how it works. It's interesting because the article did a lot of the sort of talked a lot about the economics of things, and I didn't realize this, but it makes sense because of the NIL and a few other things. Basically, it's more lucrative to go to college than it is actually to run professionally for these athletes. Which
What do
is
you mean? Where
so
would they be getting the money from?
they get paid by the NIL now. You can get paid in the NIL now, and you can get paid
Oh,
by
yes.
brands
Okay.
anyway. So versus having to go race to earn winnings and stuff, because like shoe contracts are not going to be huge, right?
Mm.
And then secondarily, if you're smart about this, sure you can leverage it into 4 years of development towards a professional career, but you can also take a degree and go like do something with that,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
Sounds great. Yeah.
So that's everyone thinks of these athletes as like, yeah, they're just here to run. It's like, well, they can also go learn. And there's one that they cited in the article that was actually a straight A student. And you're like, well, that's amazing. Now you're straight A's plus running for and winning stuff. Like that's really good, right? So yeah, it's quite interesting there. I mean, just for context, the average salary in Kenya that they cited here was $6 a day, which is about $2,200 a year US. So that's nothing.
I mean, if you want to
So
know why running is what it is in Kenya, this is part of it. A group
that's
of
the
elite
answer, right?
athletes
Yeah.
has shown there's running can be a way out of poverty. That's why it's so competitive.
That's also why doping's so prevalent. Because like, yeah, I don't want to. Yeah, it's maybe bad for my health. You may or not believe that. Fine, but like, it's a way out. I'll tell you what's bad for your health: being poor. That's terrible for your health. I'm serious. One of the best predictors of
Just the
health and
way you, I
longevity.
don't know why I'm laughing.
No, it's one of the
Yeah,
best predictors of health and longevity is money and financial status. Like, so yeah,
of
it makes
course.
tons of sense. So yeah, I get it. And so now there's a huge incentive to dope to get a scholarship. And the problem is you can't really test kids who you don't know exist, who may or may not turn up to a trial, right? Like, so now they're going to potentially dope to get a scholarship, right? And then we talked previously, like the effects of doping probably last lifelong. So yeah, it's a wicked problem here, but it's a really interesting scenario and fascinating case. I mean, we'll see this in others. This will go beyond running. This will go to other sports as well sooner or later, right? If flag football becomes when flag football becomes a sport, they're going to go recruit women's flag football players from the world championships from other countries. They're already doing this, in football in different parts of the world. Like this sort of thing is going to be more and more prevalent as the colleges want to win more.
Yeah, I think so. I think it'll spread to more colleges as well. I know South Africa has been, a lot of South Africans have benefited from US scholarships for swimming. I personally know a swimmer, went to the Sydney Olympics, was studying in the US on a US scholarship. I know runners. I think it's going to spread. I agree with you. And it's also, this particular, I think, will spread among East Africa to other countries and to other colleges as well. So let's see where it goes. Very interesting article. Thanks. Should we
Yeah.
get to the doctor's office? Did you put me in the doctor's office this week?
Push you in the doctor's office, mate. Not for your back, but I thought I'd bring this up because it's quite an interesting. It's one of the things I found out later learned in medicine that was really cool. So, given the passing of your dog, there's a thing called Takotsubo cardiomyopathy, also known as broken heart syndrome. So it's a temporary heart condition caused by severe emotional or physical stress where the heart suddenly weakens. So basically, it looks like a heart attack, but it isn't.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's quite interesting. People come in and you're like, oh, what is it? And then you eventually find out it's Takotsubo cardiomyopathy. And the word Takotsubo is obviously Japanese, and it comes from an octopus pot due to the characteristic shape of the heart during the condition. So you can see it on echocardiograph. You can actually see the way the heart is shaped and moving, and you're like, oh, wow, that's Takotsubo. So I thought I'd bring this up as a fun fact for people to learn, despite your pain.
Yeah, I've had many difficult weeks in my life. This has been particularly one of the most difficult. It would have been very interesting to get my heart tested, to get it scanned, to see how close it is to this. This is a very interesting fact.
It's not like a shades of grey thing. It's like you have this or you don't, and like the symptoms are pretty. Yeah, it's not a very common thing, but it is common enough that it's known about, but it's not like everybody who's sad has this. It's like in certain
Okay.
cases. So
Interesting. Wow. What are we watching this weekend? I don't even know if I haven't even thought of this weekend beyond watching Man United again, following our victory over Liverpool at Anfield, first time in 10 years. And thank you to every listener who has messaged me about that. Kudos and shout out to all of you. What are you watching this
I
weekend?
was texting you about it actually. I was like, "Man, I'm watching this," and then
Biggest
I
game of the
voiced.
season.
I didn't know that. I just turned it on because I was like, "Oh, United's playing. I'll see how sad Island's going to be next week." And I was like, "Oh, they're 1-0 down." I was like, "Oh, now they're up." So yeah, that was good. I'll watch a bit of rugby. There's a bit of rugby on. Australia playing Japan. Watch a bit of that, maybe a bit of the Prem. So not much. Yeah, there's not a lot on this weekend that I can think of. I'll keep an eye on Dublin Marathon. I went for a run this morning with a guy called Peter Tierney, a future guest who's running that. So keep an eye on that. But yeah, that's the story, mate.
Thank you so much for listening. We appreciate every single one of you. If you're listening on Spotify, go and vote on our poll. Would you like us to get a ketone researcher on to talk more about ketones? Appreciate every single one of you. Appreciate all our partners on this podcast. David, thanks for putting another banger together. Really appreciate you doing that. And we'll catch you on the next one.
See you later, mate.